In this post, I'm going to talk about sensations and perceptions, i.e. what we can and can't feel and why. Hi guys, Carl Green, Fitness for Life Physio here, and I've been empowering adults to improve their health and their fitness since 2002. You'll find loads more information at my website, fitnessforlifephysio.com. But for now, let's get stuck into today's topic. And if you like what you see, please share on social media, or you can subscribe, including my mailing list so you don't miss future posts. Okay, so let's get stuck in. So we're going to talk about three main things. One is the difference between sensations and perceptions. And the second thing we're going to look at is why we need to be able to feel and make sense of changes going on inside and outside of the body. And then the third thing we're going to look at is certain things that can cause changes to bodily sensations and perceptions and how those things work. And then we'll bring it all together in a little summary at the end and talk about what's next. Okay guys, so it's a really big topic, so I'm just going to try and go through some of the key points. So what is the difference between sensation and perception? So sensation is the stimulus our body can sense, and perception is how we make sense of that stimulus. Okay, so let's do an example to put the two together. Okay, so if you take your finger, close your eyes, and I want you to touch your nose and then take your finger away from your nose. So close your eyes, finger to and from your nose. Now just doing that, we've took away some of our senses, sight, to rely on where we are. So we're having to use other senses. Now if you're touching your nose effectively, and you're not having to, miss and poke yourself somewhere else, then your systems are working really well. So that means that your receptors in your arm are telling it where it is. Okay, so they're sensing changes to tissue lengths, so shortening and lengthening of tissues, joint position changes. It's sensing all of that information and it's telling you where you are in space. Okay, and then the other thing it's doing is when you make contact with your nose, you can feel that you're touching your nose. Okay, so that's telling you that all of those stimulus are going, they're sending impulses, electrical impulse in your nervous system. That's going up to your brain, and then your brain's making sense of it all and telling you where you are and what's going on. Okay, so why do we need to be able to feel and make sense of changes going on inside and outside of our bodies? Well, for inside our bodies, if we're not aware of what's changing, we're not aware of what we're doing with ourselves, in terms of controlling movement, like we talked about earlier, but also in terms of changes that might be causing us harm. So potential things, if we've had injuries or something, happen to us, we want to have a sense that something has changed in order for us to seek the right course of action, really. So it's a protective mechanism, and it's also a learning mechanism. And that's even more true when we think of outside of our bodies. So we're learning to be able to interact with the environment around us. So hot things, cold things, different textures, being able to do lots and lots of different things, really. So it's about learning and interacting with the world, and about keeping the body at a good balance and being aware of changes with our health and our function. Now finally, let's talk about a few examples of ways that these systems for sensing and perceiving can be affected. So there's scenarios where we'd have damage to tissues. You might have an injury, things like strains and sprains, or back pain, neck pain with nerve irritations. So nerve irritations, trapped nerves, causes sciatica or brachialgia, which is the equivalent in the arm. And all of these sorts of things and lots of others can cause changes to the way those nerve endings are stimulated. And there's also, particularly with injuries, things like strains and sprains, there's also been some changes to the anatomy. So the anatomy itself has changed, and your body and these receptors have got to readjust to sense and be more accurate on what's going on within the body. They've got to relearn in a way and adjust their levels to that. And the brain's representation of what's going on in the body also has to relearn because that's changed. Other conditions could be things like neurological conditions, things like stroke. We have a bleed on the brain affecting the opposite side of the body, and you can have altered sensations due to that as well. And it was actually my stroke rehab class that I run online in this way on a Thursday afternoon at 2:30 that suggested this post, so that's why I'm doing this one as my first one. Now the good news is that our brains and our bodies are really good at relearning information. Okay, so whether you've had a stroke or whether you've had any of those other things that I've mentioned, injuries and things, then we should be able to start relearning. And that's a process of using different types of stimulation, different types of textures, temperatures, all these sorts of things, different movements, and slowly and progressively, in a structured way, building up the body's senses of that and perceptions of that again. Now, whether you'll get back to where you were before your injury or health condition is really hard to know, but certainly by practicing those things in a very strategic way can be really, really useful, and something we use a lot in physiotherapy. Okay, so we've talked about sensation and perception and what they are. We've talked about why we need them, and we've also given a few examples of things that can change how those systems work as well. There's lots of other examples, things like circulation can have a role as well, but I'm not going to go into all of those. I wanted to keep this video quite short. Hopefully that's covered some of the key points for you if you learned something and found it useful. If you do have any feedback, I'd love to hear from you, genuinely, really would. So please go onto my website at fitnessforlifephysio.com, and there's a contacts page there. If you contact me through there, maybe with a suggestion or any questions that you have, perhaps I'll do a post based on your ideas in the future, like I did with my stroke class this time. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you, and you can also subscribe to my newsletters as well. So that's an email notification when I send out new posts like this, or you can subscribe if you're on YouTube. But all the best, guys, take care, and hopefully see you again soon.